I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're taking a deep dive into a personal and powerful autobiography of Jonathan Strahm. It is called To Sleep, Perchance. It is the autobiography of a narcoleptic. This moving narrative offers an unprecedented look into the life of someone battling narcolepsy, a condition often misunderstood and overlooked, highlighting the resilience required to navigate the challenges. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank our team at Prime 7 Media for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support writers like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his wonderful book. The links are below this interview. John, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
Thank you. I'm very pleased to be with you, Logan.
This is quite a story. I think a lot of people don't understand narcolepsy. Explain to them a little bit about what the condition is.
Well, Logan, up to about 30 or 40 years ago, very, very few people in the medical profession this side of the Atlantic understood it. And even now, many, many people fail to be diagnosed. Thanks to the medical school at Stanford University, back in the 70s and 80s, some wonderful work was being done, and they were studying mice. And they were trying to discover what it is that causes animals, and indeed humans, when they know when to eat, when they know when to sleep. What's the process? And the strangest thing was happening. While they were experimenting with these animals, some of the animals began keeling over and falling asleep. And they didn't understand what this was happening. So, of course, the brain scientists did some experiments, and it turned out that it is it's not a mental condition. It's to do with a faulty gene. It's a faulty gene that is lacking protein or something. So what happens is that when we should be wide awake, we suddenly fall asleep. There are, however, different levels. Some people suffer, some narcoleptics suffer with a condition which causes them to sort of collapse, remain conscious, but just turn to jelly, and they can't control their muscles. They can't do anything. This is called cataplexy, and it can be very, very severe. I'm very lucky. I don't suffer very much from cataplexy, but I've had to resign about 32 positions in my life because of falling asleep over my desk and causing embarrassment. It's a life-wrecking complaint, Logan, and fortunately, more is understood now than ever before. But in my early lifetime, it wasn't. I could tell some funny stories, but some very sad stories, as I do in my book.
I'm sure. Yeah, your book is filled with instances where narcolepsy affected your safety, affected your work, affected your life, including being in charge of a command of armored vehicles and at management meetings when you happen to fall asleep, right?
Yes.
Do you want to share one of those stories with us? Tell us the armored vehicle story. It's quite amazing.
Well, yes, it was during exercises in the south of England, a very, very large military base, which trains people in armored equipment. And we all would do different things. We would drive, we would operate the radio, all sorts of things. Now, I'd already begun falling asleep earlier, and I reported to the medical officer. And he said, "Oh, well, you're probably not getting to bed at night, you know. You young soldiers, you burn the candle at both ends." And he gave me some tablets, which I found out later was amphetamines, but it didn't do much good. So on one occasion, I was driving a tank across the Salisbury Plains, and of course, you know, you're thrown all over the place. And I wasn't aware that I'd fallen asleep, and I didn't know whether it was for 2 minutes or half an hour. But I woke up to find the commander at the top of the vehicle sort of kicking my left shoulder with his foot, and he did that periodically. I think he thought I was just losing. I wasn't a very good driver, tank driver. I don't think he realised I fell asleep. So that was only one. And also, I was trained in cavalry before I went on to the armoured, and I've fallen off horses too.
Wow. You don't
That's
want to fall off a
but
horse,
again,
particularly not when you're asleep, right? Yeah.
well, the thing is, Logan, one becomes a very good, I won't say liar, but you see, the difficulty was that if I went to my employers in later years and told them, I could be dismissed
Mm.
unless I told them in the beginning when I went for the job, in which case probably wouldn't have got it.
Right.
So, it's been
It's a catch-22. You're darned if you do, and you're
catch
darned if you
22, I
don't.
think, is yes, exactly, yes.
Have you found anything over the years that helps you?
Sorry?
Have you found any medicines or any therapy, anything that has
Uh,
helped you with your
well,
condition?
Slightly. I mean, they have tried many, many, many medications, and in the early days it was just amphetamines,
Mhm.
and then they designed a drug called modafinil. Well, for me, it helps a great deal of people, but you see, with narcolepsy, there's not one single drug that helps everybody.
Mhm.
Different people respond in different ways. One of the latest drugs they're using is uh, a drug which they use for children who are overactive,
Mm.
and it seems to work. So it's a very hit and miss sort of thing. But something that's come to light recently is how many, especially in the United States, how many tens of thousands of children, and in this side of the Atlantic too, children fall asleep at school. And, their teachers have just thought that they were not paying attention, or it was, attention deficit. And again, it's a case of going to your doctor, and you're just lucky enough if the doctor happens to have experience. He
Mm.
may not. My own GP told me that in 30 years, she'd not come across one case. But then again, she said at medical college, they didn't really have much time to study those things. So it's very, Logan, if anyone goes to their physician and says, I feel sleepy, well, if it's a woman over 40 or early 50s, the doctor will think, well, menopausal, all sorts of things. So he judges, they haven't got a magic, they haven't got a crystal ball. It's
Right.
very much hit and miss. And sadly, I think it's still very much diagnosed because those symptoms can apply to many, many things.
Yeah.
Fibromyalgia. My
Right.
daughter suffers from fibromyalgia, and she gets sleepy spells. So
Mm.
yes, it's a life wrecking thing.
It is. Why did you decide to write a book and share your story?
Well, I hadn't started off by writing a book. I started off by doing some research to find out. And as I say, I was amazed. There was a professor at Stanford University, a Frenchman, Americanized Frenchman, and he is a leading man in the field. As I say, he was doing research into mice, and then he read a medical paper that someone in the medical school down in I think it was Mexico
Mhm.
was doing the same experiments with Doberman dogs
Mm.
and getting the same results and couldn't understand why. So they decided to contact each other and have a meeting, and that's where the real research started. And but in this country, we were way behind, way behind in diagnosing, and way behind in finding drugs that would help. But in my case, I found that drugs have side effects. They
Mm.
made me feel very sort of I can't explain, sort of numb,
Yeah.
rather like waking up with a hangover. So
Right.
what I've done is I had to build my life around, around the condition
Right.
rather than adopt the condition to my life. And
Right.
strangely enough, um, there's an old saying: God works in
Strange
mysterious
ways.
ways, His
Yeah.
wonders to perform. And because I have been obliged to resign from so many jobs and I've done things that I wouldn't have done otherwise, you know. And all the research I did for this, someone said to me, "Well, you've got enough stuff there to write a book. Why don't you write a book?" And I thought, yeah. And my physician said, "Well, when you've written it, can you give us a copy, because you probably know more about it than we do."
Yeah.
So there we are.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, it's an important book that you've written. I know it's your own personal story, but a lot of people might recognize themselves in your story because they might be suffering from narcolepsy and it might have been misdiagnosed their entire lives. And
Absolutely.
like you, this disorder can really sabotage your life. Jonathan Strong has written.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt. Jonathan Strong has written a personal and powerful autobiography. It is called To Sleep, Perchance. We know the rest of it, To Dream. Yes. But this has been a little bit of a nightmare, not so much a dream for Jonathan, but he has documented his story in an autobiography, and he will explain to you what narcolepsy is, how it impacted his life, how he has sought a remedy, and how he has sought to live with the disorder and to strive and go on despite it. Before we leave today, John, anything else you'd like the folks at home to know?
Well, only that my message would be to people, particularly parents, who are finding their children being very sleepy. Ask questions. Don't just be put off by medical profession. Seek advice. If you're not satisfied with the answers you get, then take a second opinion. Yeah. Because it is a terrible condition, and there are different degrees of it. As I say, at the very worst, people suffer from cataplexy as well, which you literally become a jelly. I nearly drowned once. I was swimming, and someone told me a very funny joke. And cataplexy, I must tell you, Logan, can be triggered by emotions. For example, you could tell me a funny joke, and it could be so funny, I start to laugh, and I could become cataplectic. Or on the other hand, you could tell me some very bad news or threaten me, anything which causes an emotional reaction. And I was swimming, and someone told me a funny joke, and I very nearly drowned. That's how strange it can be. Yeah.
Crazy. Well, we appreciate the warning call. We appreciate this book. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you for inviting me, Logan. Thank you.
My pleasure. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.